Hi everyone, I'm Guillaume Leti, co-founder and CEO of Carbonable. Really delighted actually to take part in this great event, thanks at CC, and really happy also to shed some light on one very important matter, carbon removal investments, which are both a topic which is essential for global sustainability and also for corporate ESG agendas. In this talk, we'll review the overall context of carbon removal, dive a bit more into the specifics of the carbon assets, so carbon contributions, the challenges of this market, understand what are the problem facing this market right now, and the role of technology actually to solve them. So first thing first, let's get the elephant out of the room. When you think of carbon contribution, which is formally called carbon offset, what is the first word that comes to mind to you guys? Go ahead, don't be shy. What's that? There you go. So I was pretty sure about this. Thanks for mentioning it. So yeah, the real question, I guess, is, okay, are carbon offsets greenwashing or not? And well, as professional of the field, I think it's part of our duty to bring some clarity and understanding on, okay, what are carbon contributions? Why are they useful? What are they truly useful for the future of the planet and for the road to a balanced climate? So the first thing that we would like to clarify is a clear difference between those two types of markets and two types of assets, because a lot of time people sort of combine both. So on one way, you have like the emission trading system, so regulatory carbon credits. On the other hand, you have a voluntary carbon market, carbon contributions. So carbon credits essentially works on a cap and trade type of framework. They're at the government level, big polluters only company. And the idea is, okay, you're a company, you have a cap. If you go above, you have to pay carbon credits. So it's sort of a punishment and an incentive for companies to reduce their emissions. On the other hand, you have voluntary carbon markets, so carbon contributions. These are actually towards like the net zero goal of companies. So they apply to all companies, and these help to achieve an accounting balance between the emissions that a company emits and then the investment that they do to absorb, so to remove and or avoid carbon contributions from the atmosphere. So they're actually a financial asset to finance green solutions that actually remove or avoid carbon removal. So they're completely different. And just to be clear, here we're going to talk only about carbon contributions. So, well, is this financial incentive interesting, needed? Well, the truth is, science is unanimous. Yes, and it's a big yes. So to reach climate balance, we not only what is currently existing, we need at least 3 times more carbon removal right now. Even though we go to the lowest level of emissions that we can achieve as a civilization, we need at least 3 times more. Beyond like the climate change per se, they're also super useful for 2 other key components, which are biodiversity protection and livelihoods development. So all in all, this is a very big yes, and actually 3 times more than what we have right now. Good news is, actually, there's going to be now a regulation, so law, that will push companies toward net zero objective. The truth is, like, for example, in Europe is pushing hard on this. Europe has committed already net zero by 2050, and they're putting laws right now, so one of them being like the CSRD, to actually have all companies' sustainability plans audited on a yearly basis. So it's not only now, okay, we can announce whatever we want. Now, okay, you assume, like, if you're committing to net zero, we will actually now audit your path towards net zero. So the truth is, right now, there are over already 2,000 companies committed. Over next year, there's going to be now 50,000 companies that will have the CSRD as a obligation. And in fine, what it's going to end up as is all companies pretty much going towards or push towards net zero in Europe. So what is net zero? Just really briefly so we understand. This is when you reach your incompressible level of emissions, you cannot reduce it more, and then you will actually counterbalance by financing solutions that actually remove or avoid carbon emissions from the atmosphere. So that's the contribute part. And on the contribute part, carbon contributions, well, this is a booming market as a result of everything we discussed with Europe and commitments in general. So you can see now we're really at the beginning of a market that's going to be huge. It is about to skyrocket. We're talking about like a factor of by 10, 20, 100 to a certain extent, depending on the forecast from Bloomberg or McKinsey. And I think you see it coming. Well, it creates two things. Like one is a significant risk and or cost for companies who are not anticipating enough this need, this road towards global net zero. So the further they wait, the more expensive it will cost. And then it creates also obviously like an opportunity for investors, forward investors who are actually forward financing carbon contributions. So with potential high returns. So that's, you know, a significant risk and opportunity. Now you could ask yourself, okay, so why aren't they more investment, even more so now on carbon contributions? So before going there and look at the challenges, let's take a step back and understand a little bit like what is a carbon contribution per se. So simple question, a simple definition, one carbon contribution is the equivalent of 1 ton of CO2 that has been removed or avoided from the atmosphere. Now, with that definition, what do you think? Those carbon contributions are fungible, like ERC20s, non-fungibles, like NFTs, or semi-fungible, like bottle of wines? Well, great. Well, indeed, I had to use a French national emblem to that question. So let's look at the projects themselves. So projects, are they all equivalent? The answer is not, completely not, quite clearly not. A couple of examples. You have projects such as the wind turbine, which are technology-based. You have other projects which are nature-based. You have removal projects, so removing CO2 from the atmosphere, such as nature restoration. And then you have avoidance, which is, for example, nature conservation. So all of those are really different, and the list goes on and on and on. Actually, when we look at the details, carbon projects and carbon credits, they're defined by a set of metadata. So not only one, like here there are 12, but there are much more than this. To be clearly transparent, the truth is a carbon contribution cannot be considered as fungible. Impossible. If fungible, it would mean that all those components are exactly equal. So all those criteria are exactly the same. It happens in only one case. It means when this is the very same project and the very same vintage year. So that's when those assets are fungible. Hence the answer that you've guessed, which is semi-fungible. All those criteria, they affect obviously the price of such assets, and they're not the only one. One also is when, so it's actually the life cycle status. So the question behind is when and how get those carbon contributions. To make it very simple, there are two main ways, let's say, to get carbon contributions. Either you forward finance future of carbon contributions, or you directly purchase, so on spot, already audited carbon contributions. And obviously, you don't have the same risk, you don't have the same liquidity, you don't have the same quality, you don't have like plenty of other elements, and hence, in fine, you don't have the same price. All of that to say, investing in carbon contributions, it doesn't seem it's not as easy as it might seem. And depending on your criteria, depending on your budget, depending on all of this, you can then adopt the strategy that you like. So now, going back, now we've laid the foundations. We know what the carbon removal market is, why it's booming, what is a carbon contribution itself, how it's valued. Now, let's understand the key challenges that prevent this market right now to reach its full potential. First, and I think we discussed it, is complexity. There is a major gap in understanding for non-expert of the fields. This is really a niche expertise at this moment. And even so, structurally, there is a big lack of standardization at a regulation standard, at a market standard overall. So complexity is definitely a problem. Second one is actually all the eyeballs are on buying and selling carbon contributions, whereas the true problem, the real problem right now facing the most obvious problem for this market is actually the lack of supply. As you can see, demand is going huge. Supply, we're going to face a supply crunch very promptly. So the need of the market is to fund quality supply. Now, the biggest threat is definitely greenwashing. I think this was the first words that came out. This has a bad reputation, and as you know, reputations die hard. But it's actually true that many of those projects originally could be considered as greenwashing. Greenwashing can be due to various factors. So the certifier methodology, the poor sourcing, the poor due diligence, the poor monitoring, etc., etc. There are a bunch of reasons that create greenwashing, and the problem is that the backfire for that is actually extremely important for companies investing in this. Last but not least, a big lack of tools. Right now, actually, once you have your strategy put down together, even though like you were with a consultant, let's say, he said, okay, you should buy these type of assets here, 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 here. Which tools do you have? So to fund, to actually manage those assets, to actually monitor those assets, to actually report on those assets, etc. Right now, there is a big lack, and all of this almost is done manually with a big, time-consuming factor and risk factor associated to this. And we experienced this from the company we work with. So what is the technology's role to solve these challenges? The truth is, we're glad because there are some awesome technologies that exist and that can answer the majority of them. So what if I told you that we could leverage blockchain technology and DeFi, tokenizing carbon projects themselves? So hence, streamlining the forward financing accessibility to anyone. Hence, providing market liquidity, transparency, and traceability right from the get-go, right from the very first point in the life cycle of the funding of the project. What if we could leverage also blockchain technology to help diversification with digital assets, smaller, fragmented, smaller amount of money invested? What if we could minimize costs through this? Give assets liquidity, you can sell them back at the time you want. And what if we leveraged all the data that we have to provide business intelligence? What if we actually took the very best features of all the leading ERP systems and applied it to carbon contribution, so that you can actually automate a lot of tasks, accounting, etc., while facilitating the management of your portfolio and the management of your auditability as a whole on a continuous basis? What if we use satellite imagery and AI to actually monitor the projects over time, so that you have a very unified way to follow through every single project from the same way in an independent and unbiased way, standardized, etc.? What if we used data as a whole, data management and reporting, to unify all the data from those different projects? Again, same way of interpretation, same line. Have data about global project and asset level, provide dynamic real-time reports ongoing. You see me coming, and I'll go quick because I know I'm about to finish the minutes. I had to take a couple of minutes, of course, to talk about Carbonable. You saw it coming, I guess. So we are a carbon removal investing arm. So what we do is we converted all those what-ifs into reality. And we really, now what we do is we streamline tailored carbon investments. We streamline management, accounting, and auditability on those assets. We provide continuous monitoring on all projects supported and personalized real-time reports. Those are some clients of us telling good stuff. We are truly humbled because some of them are big, both on the B2B side and the B2C side. Humbled and really glad actually to have such great feedbacks. To conclude, I would say back to the original question. So are carbon contributions a myth or a reality? If there was one key takeaway to remember for all this, I hope it would be that actually carbon contributions, yes, are more than needed. Number one, yes, there are problems in this market, but yes, there is technology, and technology can answer some of those and the majority of those problems. And I think our mission and our vision is this, is leverage the most advanced technologies, whatever they are, blockchain, AI, satellite imagery, etc., to elevate carbon investing to a new standard of transparency, traceability, and operational efficiency. And last, is this a myth or a reality, the opportunity or the risk behind? Well, what we can say is that from the project that have been financed, forward financed last year, and the price of those same assets sold this year, there's been a plus 95% increase. Those are facts. We don't have like the crystal ball, but all of that plus data plus forecast tend to think that indeed this is a high risk and high opportunity type of dilemma, and that's about it. I think I would like to, so B2B wise, if you are here B2B, don't hesitate to reach out. We're more than happy to actually support you on your road to net zero and or carbon investment. And B2C wise, we are gonna do actually another public sale. So stay tuned on our social media. Thank you very much for all your attention. Much appreciated, and I hope you found it worthwhile.
Does anyone have a question?
Thank you for the presentation. Two questions. Regarding the token, I understand it's a kind of NFT. Can it be considered as a security token? And so can you trade it on secondary markets? And second question, what is your business model?
Plenty of questions, but great questions. So yes, indeed, like we part of our tokenization is on the project level, and at that level it's SFT, so semi-fungible token, as we discussed, because it provides great advantages and is actually reflects that, you know, those are semi-fungible by nature, all the assets, underlying assets. It's tradable on secondary market, etc. Yes. Community security. So that was obviously like a raising question that we had for, you know, the past year because of all regulation being, you know, discussed, etc. Now we are clear on the fact that this is not, and so we de-risk that, and so that's why also we were waiting a little bit to push further on B2C. We didn't want to expose anyone to this type of risks. So now that we are clear that this is not a security, we can definitely push further. Business model is pretty simple. On the financing side, we take a cut just because this is the service that we provide to actually provide like the very best projects with heavy due diligence, thorough due diligence, etc. We take also into consideration like other providers, satellite imagery, etc., to actually scan the projects before sending it for funding. So we take a cut on this, and a small cut, and we ensure that actually at the bare minimum 70% goes back to the project developer, including our fee, certification fee, auditing fee, etc., etc. So we like our goal is really like to maximize the funding of such projects, which are, you know, just simply essential for the planet. And the second part of it is a SaaS model, because all the SaaS that we provide on the management, monitoring, reporting, and whatnot is, you know, is yes, there is like the protocol behind that powers it, but it's a SaaS used by so companies, and also will be used by B2C also.
Okay. Last quick question.
So I'm just a little confused. So all the Vera credits that were tokenized onto the blockchain were tokenized by Toucan, KlimaDAO, and Regen Network. There have been none that have been tokenized since then. They're all spot credits. So your protocol, are you just smart contracting the legal rights to future credits that will one day be tokenized if Vera says yes?
So we're in fact focusing right now more on the forward financing part, because this is like actually the bulk of the problem right now on the carbon offset market. It's not necessarily like the selling, which goes well. It's actually funding those projects, which is essential because like there's not enough supply. So that's what we streamline. And so far, the carbon credits weren't tokenized on our solution. Now we're in the process of moving forward towards like the tokenization of those. But this is like a deeper conversation that we couldn't like explore in just like a couple of minutes right here.
Okay. Thank you, Guillaume, and thank you, everybody.